Hi, I'm Jake, and welcome to the newest podcast on YouTube called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where I interview people who all with fiction and more from our childhood. We'll be sharing our favorite memories, talk behind-the-scenes moments, and so much more. I'm your host, Deffinbaugh, and welcome to the Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. I'm your host Jake, and my co-host with me, Chris Bixby, Matthew Johnson, and of course, as always, that you see from the last episode and the second episode you guys seen, Wyatt McCullough. How are you three?
Good.
Very awesome. So, oh my gosh, I have to mention this. Our last week's episode.
That was amazing.
Jeff Sutton.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So amazing.
Yes, great guy.
It was a very fun, episode to do.
Yeah, very indeed. Like, especially like for, I don't know why. I feel like the last week's episode. I'm thinking it was probably like the best, like most funnest interview we had so far, which is so amazing.
Mhm.
But who knows? We can get this episode more funner. Who knows?
Yeah.
But anyway, so this episode's guest we have he is now a stand-up comedian, and before all that, he was the original boy actor for Tinky Winky for the Teletubbies for the first 76 episodes, and yeah, he did. Yeah, so after that, Simon Shelton, was throughout the show, and I'm thinking what he was a part of really was all my childhood, because I feel like most of the stuff that I had, like DVDs or VHS, I think it's mostly from the first season. So
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
so it's really like nostalgia to me that he was a part of those so much. So really is. So yeah, what I said earlier, and he's here, and he's Dave Thompson. How are you, Dave?
Hi, yeah, I'm really well, thanks. I should correct you on the thing about the first 76 episodes, because I was the only Tinky Winky in the first 76 episodes. Then they fired me, but they used my generic footage in every episode they made after that. So my name is in the credits, I'm in the show, and I was on the payroll for all of the ones they made.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
When they've got new it's all new actors, and they sold the franchise to a Canadian company. But that whole thing, I was actually in everyone, not just the first 76.
Mm-hmm.
Well, really awesome. It's so crazy that season 1 had that much episodes, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a
So
few
I'm
hundred or
not
something.
sure that much episodes for first season to get that. Probably because of how big popularity the show was back then, that gave away with so much episodes.
Yeah, not a lot of shows are lucky enough to run for that many episodes, but Teletubbies, because of how popular it was very lucky to get 365 episodes.
Yeah.
Literally one episode to make the whole year.
Yeah.
It was made for babies, you see, so babies wouldn't necessarily notice that they were watching the same one again.
Right, yeah.
Too naive.
But now
Yeah.
there's a reboot of it.
Yeah,
Yep.
which we're going to talk about that a little later, right?
Mhm.
So yeah. So our first question we should start ask is that how do you start that they started with that you want to do for your career, and how did all where you are now, like that we know of be part of Teletubbies, and it's just before you're part of the show and as now a stand-up comedian.
What happened was I did a degree in theatre, and I wanted to be like an actor and a writer. And I started doing stand-up comedy because it was just easy to do it. You just get on stage and you perform, and you don't have to get somebody to book you in a play and rehearse a play with other people. It was a very instant, quick way of getting into showbiz. And I just noticed when I moved my laptop, I unplugged the main supply, so I'm going to plug it back in. So I was doing a stand-up, and I was working for this guy called Harry Hill, who is a British stand-up comedian who made it, and he's become like one of the biggest major stars in the UK with his own hit TV series at prime time Saturday, on the main channel. And he took me on to do lots of stuff since. I've done lots of work for him, but I was in his first TV series he ever made. and I played various characters. And one of the characters I played in this TV series was an Egyptian mummy. And when they, like a zombie thing, in a mummy costume, and when they put the costume on me, they had to actually sew the bandages over my face. And people said to me, don't you feel, claustrophobic being sewn in so you can't come out till the costume person comes and cuts the stitches? I said, no, I feel really safe and secure in here. Maybe I'm a bit autistic, I don't know. And one of the guys who works as a runner on that show, which is like the most junior job you can have, where, the entry-level job into TV, he worked his way up the ladder to become the production manager of this new show they were making called Teletubbies. And he remembered how I was really comfortable being sewn into a costume. And he asked me if I would audition for the part of Tinky Winky, which I did. And out of over 400 people, I got cast in the role.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I was a stand-up comedian before I did the Teletubbies, and even when we were filming it, I was in the evenings. I was performing as a stand-up comedian.
Wow.
That's
So
Nice.
were you ever in a
That's
full
crazy.
costume before that?
Had I
Like
done
the
such
Tinky Winky costume?
Sorry, I don't understand the question. What was that?
Were you ever like in the suit performer? Because I know like people from Barney
No.
weren't. Carrie
No, I
Simpson
wasn't.
wasn't. Super
That was the only thing I'd done was the Egyptian mummy.
Nice.
And like when they cast the Teletubbies, they deliberately didn't want to get what they called skin performers or suit performers. They wanted to get people who brought something else to the role and weren't just used to wearing costumes and being like a puppet,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted people who could bring like character to the.
Yeah,
You
people who
entertain
wanted to be
people.
Was the Tinky Winky suit heavy, or was it like,
They were really heavy. They
were really heavy?
Yeah, it took ages because the shooting schedule was delayed because they were using this special material that was made in America, which is two-way stretch. Lots of material can stretch one way, but it can't stretch two-way. And this was like revolutionary new, the fur of each Teletubby. So they were waiting for this material to come from America. And basically, you wore these great big huge sort of foam rubber stuff that made you look fat, and then the suit, the rest of it was stretched over. And so it was very heavy and very hot. And our eyes were at the same level as the mouth. So when the mouth was closed, we were completely blind. We couldn't see anything. And when the mouth was open, we could see through the mouth.
Wow.
That's awesome.
We operated the eyes with the left hand. There was a thing like the brake on a bike inside our mitten hands. And if you look very closely when you're looking at the Teletubbies, sometimes you can see, if you look at their paws, you can see there's a bit of movement. And that's where, if it's the left hand, they're opening and closing the eyes. And if it's the right hand, they're opening and closing the mouth.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One of my dressers, because we had to have two dressers each to get us in the costume. And one of the dressers had before worked in the RAF, which is like Britain's equivalent of the USAF, the Air Force. And he'd worked as a maintenance guy on Phantom fighter bombers, which of course were made in America. And he'd work on like the wires that they had that went from the control lever of the pilot to the rudder on the tailplane, and the ailerons, and the flaps. And he said that it's the same technology. The Teletubbies were the same technology as the Phantom fighter bomber, in that there's a wire going from the control to operate the eyes as opposed to the rudder, and another control. There's another wire going to operate the mouth as opposed to the ailerons. But he said it was pretty similar.
Kind of like Barney away, because Barney had a bite bar for the mouth.
It's very similar to the Barney costume, because I'm pretty sure that they said that you could only see, like, it was very hot, very heavy, and you could... Were there... I don't know if you could see through the eyes in that costume. Chris, would you know? Did they say if they...
I would not know.
He got stabbed, didn't he? The guy wearing a Barney costume, he did an appearance somewhere. I think someone stabbed him, but the knife didn't make it through all the costume.
Oh.
Yeah,
That's bad.
that was a long time ago, but yeah, is this Barney the dinosaur?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's Barney the
yeah.
dinosaur.
Barney the dinosaur, yeah. Yeah, someone attacked him and stabbed him, but he survived because the knife couldn't reach him through all the costume.
My goodness.
That's
That's crazy.
I don't know who that was.
Hmm.
It wasn't Carrie, I'll tell you that.
So do you have like a favorite moment of, just in general of, being Tinky Winky, like being in the costume or.
Well, we had some great times. It was all great fun on the set. It was filmed in the corner of a field on a farm, and the first year it was like a heat wave. So we were very hot, and we spent a lot of time when we were out of the costume because I'm filming. You're always waiting around for a long time while they set up shots and things.
Right.
And so we'd horse around a lot and have a lot of fun. But there's not actually one moment I don't think I can remember. There were sheep walking around and stuff. They're just out of shot, but you can see sheep. They're all sheep walking around, and it was a working farm. There was a great big grain silo, and they always had to keep that out of shot. And the windmill used to fold down.
In the rabbits too. What was it like working with the rabbits?
So cute.
Oh, the rabbits, they were Belgian eating rabbits, and they were imported from Belgium because they needed the biggest possible rabbits they could find. Because we were quite tall. I mean, I was 8 foot tall in my costume. We were really big.
Right.
And the whole thing, the idea is that we're supposed to look small, and the camera angles always try to, either have the point of view of a young kid. It was made for babies. It was made for kids like 0 to 3 years old. Officially, that was the target. Right. First TV show in history that was made for people who were babies. And so the camera angles, it was always like they tried to make us look small. And often when people meet me, they expect me to be a really short person, like R2D2 or someone. And so they got the biggest possible rabbits to make the Teletubbies look as small as possible. And rabbits, they normally only come out like at dawn and dusk. They don't come out in the hot sun. And obviously we were filming in the hot sun. And the rabbit holes that the rabbits come in and out of?
Yeah.
But they made that whole set, in the corner of a field. It was landscaped and stuff. And then they made the dome with AstroTurf on it. And those rabbit holes are just like sewage pipes put into a little bit of artificially landscaped hill. And the first thing that the rabbits did was run away from all the people and the camera equipment, and the lighting and everything, and they'd run and hide in the rabbit holes. So what they had to do is they had to get a piece of wood that was just slightly smaller in diameter than the sewage pipe, which was the rabbit holes, put it on the end of a long pole, and then they kept that there. So when they had the cameras ready and they were ready to roll, they pushed the thing through the other end of the pole to push the rabbits out of the hole so they couldn't run in. And because we couldn't see where we were going when we were walking around, we were always nearly treading on the rabbits. And the result was that the rabbits all got very traumatized and stressed and developed cancer and died. So they had to have a continual stream of rabbits coming over from Belgium to replace the rabbits that got cancer and died. So when you see the cute rabbits, they've probably already got cancerous tumours from the stress of being in the Teletubbies and being pushed out of the rabbit holes with a big piece of wood on the end of a pole. And nearly trodden on by us as we're running around.
It's crazy that how much the rabbits were there for the show and all, and they're so adorable, especially when the
Yeah.
Oh my
Just
god,
running around.
The sound trumpets and stuff like that.
Moments of the show, especially the rabbits. It's so cool. I didn't know. We didn't realize at all that how much people were auditioned for us Tinky Winky, and I know you really gave so much talent the way that you wanted for the role. That's how audition can be with that much people. That is crazy. Wow. Do you have a favorite episode of Teletubbies that?
I quite like the one when Tinky Winky puts the little ballet tutu on and dances.
Oh yeah. I remember
I
that.
saw that.
One, yeah.
I saw that so many times.
And the other one when he has all the things in his bag and he puts Lala's ball and Poe's scooter and everything in his bag.
I remember that one too.
They
Yeah.
made a special big bag, and I had extra big hands to put things in for close-up shots.
Yeah, those are classics.
Nunu was also cool on the show.
The Nunu got fired at the same time I got fired. There was a bloke inside the Nunu, and you might notice the guy inside it got fired. Loads of people. When I got fired, loads of people got fired. The designer got fired. The art director got fired. The Nunu got fired. And you might notice with the Nunu, you know his hose, it only ever bends one way.
Yeah.
And that's because it's a guy's elbow, and he's got his arm in it, and he can't bend his elbow the opposite way.
You didn't even know a guy was in there.
So so the Nunu ever does his trunk one way because the guy's, his elbow can only bend one way. You see, it's like that inside the hose. And and the guy, have you ever heard of Monty Python? Monty Python. Yeah. Well, the guy who was the designer on the show was also, before that, he'd been the designer on Monty Python's Flying Circus. And he actually owned shares in the company, the production company that made the Teletubbies. But it didn't stop him from getting fired at the same time I got fired. And the art director got fired. And his next job was the art director on the film Titanic, directed by James Cameron.
Wow.
Nice.
Gosh.
That's crazy.
It's so weird at the same time where it's kind of like my mindset of Barney in a way where we guys talk about Barney, I can say it's sad that's how really tall Tinky Winky was in the actual set, other than what tall he is on the TV screen.
Yeah.
Well, you can see in the shots that I'm Tinky Winky, I'm taller than Dipsy, but in the shots with the guy who replaced me, Simon Shelton as Tinky Winky, he's only the same height as Dipsy. So if you watch an episode that was made after I was fired, the generic shots, Tinky Winky's taller than Dipsy, but other shots, Tinky Winky's the same height as Dipsy. And that's how you can spot whether it's Simon Shelton or me in the costume. And of course, Simon Shelton got found dead in an alleyway in Liverpool one morning a few years ago.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It sucks that
Yeah.
he passed away, but no.
I was wearing the Tinky Winky costume at the time, obviously.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm glad that people still talk about Simon Shelton and what he did to the show. Not just you, but like Simon too, which it's been unfortunate that happened. But so what was with like the actual like creations like that's originally like to the show? Because I remember there are some things that which you like. I think you probably know what I'm talking about, Chris. But I feel like there's the pictures that was like that's originally gonna be on the show, but like it was big. It's like I guess that's not like there enough the actual like show,
I think I know what you're talking about because it wasn't originally called Teletubbies.
Oh yeah, I forgot about saying that.
Oh yeah.
They were planning to call it Teletubbies, and then they discovered that Teletubbies was a copyrighted word in America. So they changed it to Teletubbies, and then after Teletubbies was released, it was so successful that the people who owned the copyright to Teletubbies produced a TV show called Teletubbies.
Well, it's more a sensible name for the show.
Yeah, Teletubbies, yeah.
It's cool that John Simon, who did Dipsy for the show, is also a comedian, and he even mentioned one point about that's what you call the show Teletubbies.
Yeah. From
one of this interview that's from like YouTube, you guys can.
Yeah, and we know he can still do the voice.
Oh yeah, same as Pooh Fan Lee and I forgot. I think you probably know
Fan Lee and Nicky Smedley.
Yep.
Nicky Smedley played Marla, and Poi Fan Lee played Poe.
Yeah. And John Smith was Dipsy.
John and I are friends. Because he's a stand-up comic as well, and sometimes we find ourselves on the same bill doing a comedy show. And if one of us is the MC and the other one is the act, as they come on, we bump tummies as we pass on the stage.
As a Teletubbies reference.
Yeah. What was the Tubby Custard and Tubby cakes like?
Well, we didn't taste them because it wasn't edible.
What were they made out of?
The Tubby toast was made of like chemical like foam. And that probably and the Tubby Custard was just some sort of liquid that looked good on camera, but was just some sort of inedible goo.
Mm-hmm.
And when we had the straws in our mouths and we sucked the straws, obviously, we didn't really take the Tubby Custard into our mouths. When we drank through the straws,
Right.
it was going through a pipe and then being led out through another part of the costume.
Wow. Yeah. So, do you ever heard of like that Teletubbies like did a reboot?
The reboot? No, what does that mean? I mean, I know what reboot means, but what does the Teletubbies reboot mean?
It's pretty much
The-
I want to say it's the same thing, but with different actors.
Yeah, there was like a new Teletubby series with like
Oh,
complete. Yeah.
Yeah, they sold the franchise because the company that made the production company that made it for the BBC and owned the rights is called Ragdoll, and
Yeah.
they sold the franchise to a Canadian company called XC or something, and then they did another. They used the same costumes to make another version of the Teletubbies with touch screens apparently. And I've never seen any, I never watched any of those, but I know that's what they did. They had completely new actors, and it was a revamped version of it, but I never actually watched it.
If they asked you to come back for it, would you have done it?
I probably would have, depending on what the money was like.
Wow.
And also, I
Very
know there
awesome.
was a Teletubby spin-off.
Yeah, I just saw the Teletubbies everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw a little bit of that. That was quite a long time ago, wasn't it? They made that.
Oh yeah.
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 So, go ahead, Jake.
You can say it, Chris.
So since you're like a comedian as well, so how long have you been doing like comedy for?
Long time. I did my first attempt at getting on stage and doing a guest spot in 1985, probably before you were born.
Yep.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
even way before Teletubbies even
Yeah.
started thing. I know.
It started in '96.
Wow, yeah.
We made it in '96, and it was
Yeah.
first put on TV in '97.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is the year
1997
before.
Brutus 1 and so I know Teletubbies like the actual before the show actually started airing. I know Teletubbies was trying attempting for doing the show for a couple of times or something that or it was like a false information. I'm honestly not sure. But but did they even Teletubbies was even like was trying to do a show before '97?
Well, the same company made other children's shows. What happened was there was a woman called Anne Wood who is the main person behind Teletubbies, and she originally was a school teacher, and then somehow she got working in breakfast television when it was quite a new thing to have breakfast television in Britain. And they had two different networks doing breakfast television. One was the BBC doing Good Morning Britain, and the other one was ITV, another network. Like you have CBS and Fox and NBC. We have BBC and ITV, the two main networks. And so ITV was doing TVAM breakfast show, and Good Morning Britain was doing the BBC was doing Good Morning Britain, and they were competing for ratings. And Anne Wood worked just as some sort of executive on TVAM. And their ratings were flagging and going behind the other networks' ratings. And so she had the idea of getting a glove puppet called Roland Rat, which was like a rat glove puppet that they made. And then he'd appear sometimes in some of the things on this TV program. It was aimed for adults, it's breakfast TV for adults, but they just put this sort of character called Roland Rat in. And suddenly their ratings shot up. And they couldn't understand why suddenly just a stupid glove puppet made the ratings for the show, for grown-ups, shoot up. And they realized that what it was that the mothers who had jobs were getting ready to go to work in the morning. And if they had a young kid, what they'd do is they'd stick the kid in front of the telly, and the Roland Rat character engaged the little toddlers and left them time to put their makeup on and get their clothes on or whatever they were doing, to drive the kids to nursery school and then go on to work. And so once they realized that the Roland Rat was engaging young kids, they kept on using him more and more and more, and their ratings kept on getting better and better than the other networks. And Anne Wood learned, how powerful a puppet or a character like a furry, cuddly character, how powerful it is on television if you want to engage babies or very young children. So she then started her own personal production company, which she called Ragdoll, and she started making children's TV shows which had puppets to engage kids. And she made one called Rosie and Jim, which was about two characters on a little narrow barge going through the canals of Britain. She made another one called Tots TV, which was all these little characters. And then each time she made a TV series, she learned about, from each one. And it was all about ratings. The more people they could sell the shows to, and the more countries they could sell the shows to, the more money they made. So each time she made a TV show, she learned and took all that knowledge and experience into the next one. And so the Teletubbies came after Tots TV, and they found that having puppets was limiting. And if they could actually have costumes and with actors inside the costumes, then they'd be able to do an awful lot more, make it look more natural. And so when they made the Teletubbies, they already knew what they were doing. And by that point, they were funding. Do you know what I say when I say nurseries or creches? Like,
yeah, we know what you mean.
Oh.
So what they were doing, they were funding. Shall I say kindergartners? Is that what people would understand the word? Nurseries.
Yeah, kindergarten. Yep.
Kindergarten. Okay, so what they were doing, the TV company was by now making so much money because they were selling these TV shows all over the world. Often a country would buy them and then dub, their own language over the puppets.
Right.
But they already made so much money that they were funding kindergartens all over Britain. And the one condition that they had for giving money to these kindergartens was that they could get the kids in one group and put them in front of a big TV screen and show them their preview tapes of their programs with a camera on top of the TV, filming the children as they react to the program. And they would then harvest all of these different tapes from all the different kindergartens all over the country, and then assess and use the data. And they had them in poor areas, black areas, Chinese areas, Indian areas. They had them in Northern Ireland. They had them in rich areas with rich kids. They just covered the whole all social demographics. And they knew that if they got the data back from a preview tape where every group of kids sat riveted to the screen and didn't start drifting away, that they knew with absolute certainty that when they transmitted it to the whole country, it was going to be a surefire hit. And that's what they did with Teletubbies.
And Teletubbies was for sure a hit. So
Oh yes.
Really
It's still
clever.
talked about, and why we're still talking about
years.
it in some stuff in half and Teletubbies and Same as for Chris, and
Yep.
that's how Teletubbies can be so a good and memorable show too.
Even long after the show stopped, filming new episodes, it was still popular for years and years.
Yeah,
And I remember watching it on
Crazy.
PBS.
it still is, because there's an endless supply of babies. So even now, they sell it, and they sell the merchandise, which is where they make the real money. And there's an endless supply of babies being born to consume the Teletubbies.
Yeah, I remember watching that from Spotify with Wyatt, since I think probably I've seen it from not VHS from the VHS TVs I have from Teletubbies, but I saw it from Spotify as well, Wyatt. So, so I know you originally or something that you're going to do like a Teletubby. Well, we're talking about Teletubbies right now. That then you're originally going to do like Tinky Winky voice for the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that I'm thinking of someone who's was dubbing to the voice for the show. It's how was that with all what they wish you're going to do the voice and then all that with the person who
TV is a very brutal business, and Anne Wood, the woman who invented the show and produced it, she was very, very ruthless, because obviously she had so much money involved and so much responsibility to make sure this show was successful. But she was very, very ruthless, which is why she used to fire people very often, very frequently. Even people who worked in the office could turn up for work and just get told, have your desk cleared in half an hour, or you're out of here. Very, very ruthless woman. And I think often people who create, or produce some amazing thing like that, whether it's Napoleon conquering the countries around him or, whoever it is, winning a war or something, they are very ruthless people, and they don't hesitate to, get rid of people that they don't think are absolutely what they want. And she was like that. And I found that she went off to Japan to try and sell Teletubbies to the Japanese. And the woman who was in charge of all children's TV programs in the BBC, who commissioned the Teletubbies to be made for the BBC, which is a network, she came to visit the set. And by now, Anne Wood had said to me that the BBC had seen preview tapes of the show, and they didn't like my performance, and that she was fighting tooth and nail to keep me in the show. I thought, God, that's terrible, because all I'm doing is what they tell me to do, and the director says, that's great, you're doing a really great job, I love how you're doing it. And so if the director's telling you that you're doing what they want, you keep on doing what they want, what the director's telling you they want. So to be told that, the BBC didn't like my performance and that she was fighting tooth and nail to keep me in the show was a shock. So when this woman visited the set from the BBC, I said to her, I'd already met her a few times, and I said, hi, I'm really sorry that, you don't like my performance, but all I'm doing is what the director tells me is good and that he likes. And her jaw dropped, and she said, I'm really sorry, but I don't know what you're talking about, because we have a policy with the BBC that we don't watch any of the shows that are being made for us until there's a fully edited episode for us to see. And as you know, there are no fully edited episodes of the Teletubbies yet. So that was a story in complete contradiction to what Anne Wood, the owner of the company, had told me. And I knew that one of them...
She had told you a lie?
Pardon?
So she had told you a lie?
Yeah, she'd lied. But one of them was lying, and it turned out that it was Anne Wood, the owner of the company. And that was her way. That was the TV producer's way of saying, I'm going to fire you, but I'm not telling you yet. So when we came, we couldn't do, they don't use real sound, because it was a bit like the silent movies. When we started making it, because we couldn't see where we were going, we had a person with a megaphone giving us instructions. So for example, each time, the Teletubbies hear the windmill and there's that weird noise, and they all stop and look to the windmill and then look back to the camera and go, uh-oh. Yeah. Well, that all had to be, because we couldn't see each other and we couldn't see anything out through the mouth if it wasn't open. They actually had a person with a megaphone going, right, walk 2, 3, stop 2, 3, windmill 2, 3, uh-oh 2, 3, and we'd be doing it. But obviously they couldn't use the soundtracks of all the voice, because there was someone with a megaphone and there were people talking, there were lots of noise, equipment, rabbits dying, whatever. So all of the sound had to be put on in post-production. And the first post-production sound session that we went to, Anne Wood said to me, can you do a different voice? Try using a different voice. I'm not so sure about that voice you've been doing, which was the voice I've been doing for nearly a year, and which they were telling me was a great voice. It was fine. That was the voice of Tinky Winky. And then suddenly, just as I'm about to inhale to do the first line of script in the sound recording studio, she says, try a different voice. So with no chance to prepare, I did it in a different voice. And then, the next day she said, oh yeah, I'm sorry, but we can't use your voice. And it was basically, it was manipulation, because she'd already decided, she just gave me an impossible task, which was suddenly change your voice. And then said, no, that voice you suddenly did with no chance to prepare is we can't really use. So they got an actor called Tim somebody from America, an American guy, to do the voice of Tinky Winky.
What was your voice for Tinky Winky anyway?
Yeah.
It was more like sort of oh, hello, Paul, oh. Like that.
That's awesome.
And they were telling me it was a great voice. It's a very brutal business. I think I said, I don't know whether you all read that message I sent when we were exchanging emails, but you'd think that children's TV would be quite innocent, but in fact it's not, because children's TV is more marketable because you can sell it all over the world, regardless of nationality, race, religion. Those characters, they don't have race, and so you can sell it all over the world, which means you can make far more money than you can, say, from making, Seinfeld or a famous sitcom or something, Friends,
right?
Because it has more appeal, more universal appeal all over the world. So they make proportionately more money out of it. And that means that where there's more money to be made, people are more willing to lie and cheat people and stab people in the back.
Yeah.
So I know in Wood you said that creating Ragdoll Productions, Booba, and then if you heard Booba, and of course Teletubbies. Well, we can talk about that show later. Is Teletubbies was the first show that's like by performer show? Because you said that that Ragdoll Production was started with as a puppet shows or something.
Yeah, so was it? I think what he's asking is was that Ragdoll Productions like first time using like bodysuits? I think is what he's asking.
I think all their shows before them were puppets. Yeah.
Wow.
They had actors inside a costume.
Big difference.
The next one they made was In the Night Garden, which was also
right. Yeah, I remember that show. Yeah.
I thought that was in that show.
Yeah. Wait, do you know the show Booba anyway? Because I know that show was actually on the same company, I think.
Yeah, In the Night Garden was made by Ragdoll. They learned all the things they learned from Teletubbies and then took that knowledge and experience to In the Night Garden.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, what did you do after your days as Tinky Winky? Were you still like doing like comedian?
Well, I was working as a stand-up comedian because that was my sort of bread and butter work. So when they fired me, I just carried on working as a stand-up comedian because I'd never given it up. And then, of course, there was a big time lag from the time I got fired to the time when they started showing the program on TV. And the program immediately made a massive impact and became this huge, very popular thing. And it was only later that it came out that I'd been fired, and all the TV companies and the newspapers and everybody treated it as if it had just happened, even though I told them it had happened, a long time before. So for a while, I was just totally besieged by reporters, and there was even a statement from the Prime Minister's residence, 10 Downing Street, about me being sacked, and all these big celebrities were making statements about how shocked they were that I'd been sacked. But I carried on doing stand-up comedy, and I carried on doing TV acting, and I've been in 5 feature films and 2 sitcoms. And I also wrote a letter to Jim Henson just after I got fired on recommendation my dress.
That's awesome.
Who had been the guy, who used to service Phantom fighter bombers. And he said, why don't you write to Jim Henson? Because he'd also worked for Jim Henson. So I wrote a letter to Jim Henson, not the bloke personally, but to the, the company. And that morning, this was like in the 90s before people had emails all the time. So that morning, the guy working at Jim Henson, he had 2 letters in his inbox. One was saying, we need a commission, a big commission from Hallmark Entertainment in America, saying that they're going to do this big project involving a lion called Livingston the Literacy Lion. And they need a really tall actor to wear the lion costume, which is going to be made in LA. They had a letter from me saying, hi, I'm just finished working in this program called Teletubbies, and I'm 6'3" tall, and I've got experience of wearing a costume. So if you have any work, wearing a creature costume, I'm interested. And he saw my letter and saw this letter commissioning a costume for a tall actor. Actually, the costume was made in London, sorry. So he just thought, great. So he called me, and I got called into the Jim Henson studios in London, and they made this great big giant lion costume around me. And the Teletubbies costumes cost £35,000 each, which is probably about $70,000.
Wow,
that's much.
This Jim Henson lion costume cost £120,000, so that's probably about $190,000. And once I had it, the production was either in New York or Los Angeles. So to use me for the filming, they had to fly me on to Hollywood, and I negotiated first-class flights and really high wages, and a limo from the airport to the hotel, and a luxury hotel, a massage in my hotel room every night because it was heavy, wearing the lion's head on my shoulders.
Right.
Massage.
Yeah.
And I did 2 TV movies for Hallmark Entertainment wearing this Jim Henson lion costume, and also a week of live appearance in New York as well.
Yeah.
I've never watched them. I've never ever watched those shows either. But it's really
Mhm.
funny. We were in Hollywood, in Hollywood studios and everything.
Well,
And also, Jakey, you were right. Booba was created by the people who did Teletubbies.
Yeah, the same.
yeah, because it was a part of Ragdoll production, so it
Mhm.
really makes sense. So
That's probably why it was so similar.
Yeah.
yeah, kind of in a way to
Yeah.
people who watch the show, which I know you did. I think most of you, Chris and Wyatt. So do you still in contact with the who did the Teletubbies, especially Pooh and Lee and Nikki? Because I know you still talk with John since both of you
Yeah.
are comedians.
I'm only in contact with John. What happened was Nikki Smedley, who played Lala, was a dancer. She was just like a sort of a modern dancer, and she was pretty much out of work the whole time.
Oh, wow.
And when she started working in Teletubbies playing Lala, she was sort of Anne Wood's favourite. She was like the daughter she never had. And when she realised that she was, absolutely adored by the big boss of the company, she started behaving in a way knowing she could get away with things. So sometimes, like I remember one time she stormed off the set in a massive temper and ran back to the dressing room and slammed the door. And the director went running after her, and she just slammed the door in the director's face.
So,
She realised how much power she had because the owner of the whole company just loved her, and she became quite unpleasant. She became not a very nice person. So I've heard someone else was doing an interview. They were doing like TV interviews with all of us, and they said that they tried to interview Nikki Smedley, and she was so difficult that they gave up trying because she was very unpleasant. I think he accidentally spelled her name wrong, and she got really angry with him about spelling her name wrong, and he just gave up because she was so unpleasant to deal with. Poi Fan Lee is a very successful actor. She was always quite a successful actress, so I know she went on to do lots of acting work, but I know she doesn't do any interviews. I think every time anybody ever asks her to do an interview about the Teletubbies, she just doesn't do it. She's just not interested. That's what I've heard.
does she not like her work in the Teletubbies or something?
I don't know. I just think she maybe moved on, and she doesn't want to.
That
That makes sense.
that's understandable.
British Chinese.
Right.
Yeah.
According to
I
Wikipedia,
got on with her. I used to go with Nikki Smedley, who played Lala. I mean, I used to give her a lift because we lived in London at the time, and all the filming was done in near Stratford-on-Avon, which is where Shakespeare was born. It was done on a farm in the middle of the countryside, and so every Sunday evening I'd drive Nikki, who played Lala. I'd drive her up in my car because she didn't have a car, and I'd give her a lift up to the hotel where we stayed. And on Friday evenings I'd give her a lift back down to London, and I was really nice to her. But once she realised, how popular she was with the owner, and maybe she knew that, that I wasn't so popular with the owner, she just distanced herself and became this sort of monster.
I just looked it up, and she was actually the choreographer in the revival series
that's
for
what I was just about to
Teletubbies.
say. She did Booba as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the Night Garden. Well, I think it's because she was well in with the the producer Anne Wood and the owner,
Right.
so he obviously got kept on for more work.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna try this mix. It's like a little weird question. Well, of course not at all. So I've heard that right after the of course OG series of Teletubbies that most of us know that most likely that the OG Teletubbies set are basically not there anymore because it's now flooded or something.
Yeah. Well, they dug a hole in a corner of the field. Tots TV was in the field next door, and they put the Teletubbies. They dug a hole in the corner of the field, and then they put the dome inside the hole, and then they landscaped. They created like a hill all around it, like a ridge, and that was partly to save the view of the sheep in the field next door. They had to always use camera angles that didn't show the animals in the field next door. And then after they stopped making the program, it became like this pilgrimage site where people would go trying to look at the Teletubbies house. And the farmer who owned the farm got so fed up of people trespassing on his land and walking over crops and stuff that what they did was they destroyed it. And because it was in a hole, it eventually filled up with water.
Terrible.
Yeah, so now it's just like a pool of water.
Wow.
Oh. That's really terrible, especially to a lot of like OG like Teletubbies like fans. What that happens. What really like means to us when we're watching the show, and how good the set was, and then now it's like completely gone, like it's nothing.
You can see it on Google Earth, on Google Maps. In fact, I had an Italian, because I get like people like you all the time, asking for interviews and things, and I had these Italian people asking, and they asked me to find it, and I found it on Google Maps and did a screenshot of it and sent them the picture of this little pond in the corner of the field.
Yeah, it's basically just a pond, like a pond, and just a pond. It was all flooded. So, it's so crazy. Like, okay, I know we're talking so much about Tinky Winky and all, and comedian and all, but it's so crazy that the baby son who works for the OG Teletubbies are like so grow up now, like almost like 20 years old or something.
Model, yeah.
I feel like she was 9 years old. No, I feel like she was like 9 months old when she most likely did the shooting as a baby son. So I feel like the actor who did baby son for the OG series probably doesn't remember at all. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, she probably doesn't remember doing it, but yeah, she certainly remembers all the publicity she got. But she's a successful model, a very, very beautiful model.
Oh wow,
very awesome, because how young, very super young she is, like she can't even remember it all, to be honest. So okay, after we all talk about so much about the reboots and whatever, and so much that. Do you even have things that in regards to Teletubbies? Like, cause I feel like one of the interviews you've done like back in the 90s, you have you have like one of those like one of Tinky Winky dolls or something.
Let me ask this. Jakey, let me rephrase this. Do you have anything you want to show us?
Yeah,
well, the Tinky Winky doll I gave to my little kids when they were babies, and that's 1,000 miles from here in Budapest.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Very awesome.
So
and Chris actually has the Actimates doll, which
the little Actimates doll that.
Which all of them are actually very rare.
Look.
Yep.
And there's even Tinky Winky.
I remember having the photographs taken. We had to go to a studio in London and get to have photographs taken of us, which they used as the basis for making those dolls.
Mm-hmm.
And the technology on those dolls is really good. Being able to interact with kids while they watch the show. So
yeah, they're well made. Indeed. I've got loads of VHS tapes actually, because they used to give us the what they call the rushes, which is just the raw footage, and they put it on. In those days, it was VHS, video cassettes, and we could watch it in the dressing room, and also we could watch it in the hotel later. We'd all meet in the same hotel room and all watch these tapes, so we could study what we were doing and try and improve how we moved and things. And when we left, I took a few of those tapes, and they're in a box somewhere. I always wonder whether they might be maybe worth money, but obviously the quality would be really low because it's the real sound. Like once, the voice trumpets, they actually had these proper holes for the voice trumpets to come out of, and then they'd move the actual voice trumpet from various places, but it was the same one or two voice trumpets in all of the holes that they just moved around from place to place and had hydraulics for them to come up. And when they weren't being used, they put a little hatch over the hole, but someone forgot to put the hatch on the hole for one shot. So we're all walking along, and my foot went down the hole, and I, like a student of Aikido, a martial art, so I was able, as soon as I could feel my foot going, I immediately stopped putting weight on it. But a lot of people without that training, I think, would have broken their leg very badly. And all that's, I remember that is in one of the rushes things where, I go down the hole, and I stayed in character and did the voice all the way through it. And I always thought that maybe if I were to get those rushes, and I could probably sell them for a lot of money, but they would be very grainy, not HD.
So how did the tummy screens work? Because we know how they work on the show, but how did they work outside of the show, like behind the scenes, or do you know?
They were just a grey patch of fur on the costume, and then in post production they made them look like proper televisions. There was a lot done in post production. They were pioneering all sorts of things which had never been done before.
Yeah. So I remember there's a one Teletubbies episode that I have to mention, like where the Tubby Custard, like I think you probably recognize that episode, Chris. That where the Tubby Custard or the machine like exploded. How do you even?
That was a Tubby Toast machine, yeah. Although maybe the Tubby Custard machine.
I think the custard machine did as well one time.
Yeah. How do you even?
The Tubby Toast thing fired out loads of toast, didn't it?
Yeah.
So that's like one of the most like like for most Teletubbies fans, it's like one of the most memorable episodes of the classic show. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of wondering how did all of that even happen? Where it's kind of like broken and like locked, and then all of a sudden all the Tubby goes are like flying through the air.
Yeah, that would have been done separately. Probably at the time all the toast was flying out of the toaster, we were probably all relaxing with our heads off, reading a novel or something, off the set.
I kind of wonder like how the Tubby, because I remember that some episodes that were, of course, where Teletubbies were sitting at the table and eating Tubby Custard, Tubby Toast, what Teletubbies call them. That's really talented. Where someone like or like throw it and then it sticks right to the player. Wow.
No, my dogs.
That would have been reverse photography.
Yeah.
They'd have done it in backward, I think.
Okay, this is kind of interesting. So, I never like. I'm gonna say this. I never watched a show like from like I know it was on PBS Kids and Sprout, which I think I probably recognized from watching it from Sprout. But I know the show because of VHS. If I like never watch any of those on VHS or DVD, I think I will probably never watch the show. And I'm super glad for my parents to like have those see what I had and thinking it's a great show and why we're here right now,
Yeah.
With Wyatt, I think you can say it about regards about that you talked before or even going to if you know what I'm talking about.
Tell me in private checks. I don't know.
What?
Are you talking about the controversy thing? Because he knows about that because he came out in that in an interview.
Is this the born again preacher Jerry Falwell?
I don't know, Jake. You tell me in private chat if you can.
I can I'm
happy to talk about anything you want to talk about.
Like where
I know that there was a long time ago, Jerry Falwell, who was a born again Christian preacher, accused Tinky Winky of being gay.
That's what I think it is.
Yeah.
And what that was about was because Tinky Winky, like they've all got their favourite toy. Poe's got the scooter, Gypsy's got the hat, Lala's got the ball, which was actually a big balloon, and Tinky Winky has the bag, the handbag, as you'd say, purse. And they basically, the idea is that they've all found this object, and each one has chosen that, and then they love it. They love that thing as their sort of special friend, their special toy that they love. Because that's what children do, and the whole thing is to relate to children. They have to behave like little 3-year-old children.
Right.
But obviously, people associate a red purse or a red handbag as being a woman's thing, and Tinky Winky and Dipsy are male, and Lala and Poe are female. And so people found it weird that Tinky Winky, a male, has a woman's bag. But it's only because they're aliens. They don't know anything. They don't know that it's a woman's or a bag, and not a man's bag, because they just take
some man can have a purse, not full on like woman's. It's not really a woman's thing, but I don't know what people think about that thing. It's full on like, why the controversy even started.
Well,
because the controversy's on the wiki is what it says.
And it also in San Francisco, the gay people took on Tinky Winky as a sort of an icon. Because apparently purple is a gay colour, and the triangle, which the triangular aerial, that's apparently a gay symbol. I didn't know this, but this is apparently what it was. So all the gay guys in San Francisco took on and adopted Tinky Winky as their sort of mascot. And on top of that, when they showed the program in Britain, they'd show it very early in the morning. Like about the first time they aired it was about 6 or something in the morning, because that's when some people were getting up to go to work and they want to put their kids in front of the telly to keep them distracted so they can get dressed and get ready. And at the same time, people who went out to nightclubs and to raves, and took psychedelic drugs would get home at about 5 or 6 in the morning, and they'd put the telly on and there'd be the Teletubbies. And so the Teletubbies became this popular program with all the sort of psychedelic drug people, because it was what was playing on TV when they got back from being up all night on drugs at a nightclub. So they became not only children's, very popular children's things, but they also became icons of the drug culture. And Tinky Winky in particular became an icon of the gays. And Jerry Falwell, this very reactionary, right-wing, born-again Christian, started denouncing the Teletubbies and denouncing Tinky Winky because he had a female purse. And that was a great big controversy over that. But I personally, I'm not gay. I'm divorced, but I've got an ex-wife and 2 daughters. But that's what that all comes from. And subsequently, Jerry Falwell got caught committing adultery. And he had a very tearful sort of apology on TV where he had to apologize for having, because he was a television evangelist. He used to make lots of money. And he had to apologize for having been unfaithful to his wife, because publicly he was holding himself up as this moral example of how you should live a good Christian life. And in secret, he having sex with another woman. And funnily enough, I know a guy who is friends with Jerry Falwell's son. And he wants to introduce us sometime. Jerry Falwell died a few years ago. But that's where that whole gay thing comes from.
Did you guys ever do like hospital appearances in the suit? Because I know Barney and the Wiggles did that.
Okay.
They did any live appearances for a long time because the Teletubbies are so big, and children imagine being their size or smaller. So it would shatter the illusion if they saw the Teletubbies as these giant, great big characters. So that was the policy for a long time. But then in the end, there was such demand for it that they broke that policy, and the Teletubbies did do live things. They came to New York and they got keys to New York, and they went to Australia. But that was after I'd been fired. So I never actually got to do any of those trips, unfortunately.
I know that Teletubbies really have plus experience to do live shows, because I know Teletubbies did live shows while during the show still happened and the show's not happening anymore. The reboot they still doing, which is really awesome. It's so weird that the purple is kind of like a gay color when Barney is like a purple dinosaur when like at the same time. And I know Poe and Lava were like together, but of course it's not real as like that's what Tinky Winky and Dipsy are like gay both of them, But I think we're gonna have final moments here for this. Do you know how anyone can find you on social media?
Yeah, I don't have a Facebook fan page or anything, but I'm on Facebook. It's I think I sent you the link. It's comedian. It's Funny Dave Thompson. Facebook.com/Funny Dave Thompson. But because I get so many people all over the world applying for my Facebook friendship because of the Tinky Winky thing, I put the settings so that you can't apply for my friendship if you don't already have a mutual friend. Right. But I don't actually have a Facebook fan page. And then also I've got Twitter, which is Dave Thompson HA, HA, which is my Twitter account, which I don't really use that much. And I've also got Instagram. I can't remember what the URL is for Instagram.
Do you have anything to say to the fans out there watching this?
Who wants to be a comedian or
any advice?
Yeah, well, I would say hello, be nice to everybody, and if you want to do stand-up comedy, before the pandemic, I'd have said go to a comedy club and get on stage and do 5 minutes, and when you do 5 minutes, do 10 minutes. But now with the pandemic, you're probably better off getting a TikTok account and just trying to do TikTok.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great way to start comedy during the pandemic. Yeah.
You'll have your own YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Yeah, and your Instagram is Dave Thompson. Since you don't remember, I can give it away where I just said. So for the end, for the wrap up, can we like sing like a one part of Teletubbies theme song?
Just remember how it goes.
Teletubbies. There you go. We sang it.
I don't know how it goes. How does it go?
I was like,
You started it.
Teletubbies.
Oh.
Yeah.
Teletubbies. Wow. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Hey,
Run away!
and then Dipsy.
Yeah, and then it does like.
Oh, and then
yeah, then it repeats.
and then Teletubbies, and then have a big hug, and then the windmill. So
And then the sun.
and then all four of them. And then
What the heck?
I have to tell you, Tubby's gone.
Well, Dave, it has been an honor.
Such a theme song for
it is-
remember throughout
it has
the whole while of the show.
It has been an honor having you on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
Hopefully
You
you
send
can
me
come
the
back
link.
and get the voice in
And I'll
here
put it on
too.
my social media when you put the link to the thing that goes out.
Thank you. That would be really nice. Thank you.
That's awesome. You guys tell other people about this because we hope to get John Simmons on here, who also did the Tweenies, I think.
John Simmett. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he did the Tweenies. Not aware of him doing the Tweenies.
Speaking of that, are you aware of that show? The Tweenies guy, because me and Chris, I think, grew up on
I've worked with people who were in it because other people also became comedians who were in the Tweenies. And I've worked with them. I can't remember their names now, but I have worked with them.
Well, very awesome. It was a pleasure for have you, and also I'm gonna say this: keep up your good work. What you're doing as a comedian, what you've been doing at the time, and can't wait for you in the future along the way.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get you back in the show. Who knows?
Yeah. Have you ever watched a program called The Last Kingdom on Netflix? It's like all
no.
Vikings and stuff.
No, yeah, I think I probably recognize it.
Anyway, I'm in 2 episodes of season 5, which I think
is very awesome. So you like still acting?
Yeah, I've got a speaking
Very
part, quite a part in 2 episodes of season 5, and I'm also in a Hollywood feature film,
Awesome,
which I think will release later this year. But I signed a non-declaration agreement, so I'm not allowed to say what the title of the film is yet until they're actually promoting the film.
Right.
I could, send you a message later if you want when I'm allowed to tell you what film it is. But it's an American director and it's a Hollywood film.
Oh, that's nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So thank you all so much for watching, and thank you guys for the support that we've been with, what experience so far with the podcast, which is really appreciate a lot. But if you guys want to get more content for podcasts, you of course like, and I don't need to say what every YouTuber say. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time for another episode. But until then, from all of us.
See you next time for another episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. See you again soon. Bye bye.